In the land of Judah, during a time of great turmoil and unrest, a prophet named Habakkuk walked among the people. He was a man of deep faith, yet he found himself troubled. The nation was in disarray, filled with violence, injustice, and corruption. The cries of the innocent echoed in the streets, and the faithful felt abandoned. Habakkuk stood at the temple, looking out at the darkness surrounding him, wrestling with questions that weighed heavy on his heart. "Why, Lord," he cried out, "why do you allow injustice to reign? Where are you in our suffering?" Habakkuk's heart was filled with anguish, and he sought answers. This was a time when the very foundation of faith seemed to tremble. His words rang out like a mournful song, seeking understanding in a world that felt unsteady. As Habakkuk prayed, he felt a deep yearning for God to respond. And in his moment of vulnerability, God answered him. "Write down the vision I give you," the Lord commanded. "Make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it." God's promise was clear: though it may seem like justice is delayed, it will surely come. The vision spoke of a future where the righteous would live by faith. This moment marked a turning point for Habakkuk. He learned that faith does not always see the immediate answers but trusts in God's perfect timing. The first lesson emerges from Habakkuk's questions. God may seem silent, but he hears our cries. When we feel lost or abandoned, we can always turn to him in prayer and stillness. Our questions matter, and God invites us to seek him earnestly. As the narrative unfolds, Habakkuk learns of the Chaldeans, also known as the Babylonians. They were fierce warriors, known for their cruelty and power. God revealed that he would use these ruthless people as an instrument of judgment against Judah. This news struck Habakkuk like a thunderbolt. How could a just God use such a wicked nation to punish his own people? He wrestled with this reality, feeling the weight of injustice even heavier than before. "Lord, how can you be silent when such evil is allowed to flourish?" Habakkuk asked, wrestling with the implications of God's plan. The prophet was torn between his unwavering faith and the harsh reality of the world around him. Yet, in his struggle, he clung to the hope that God is ultimately in control. The second lesson is that it is okay to wrestle with God. Doubts and questions do not drive us away from him, they can lead us closer. God desires a relationship marked by honesty and openness. In our struggles, he is there, guiding us deeper into his truth. As Habakkuk continued his conversation with God, he was reminded of the importance of faith. "The righteous will live by faith," God declared. What did that mean? It meant trusting in God's character and his promises, regardless of outward circumstances. Faith was more than belief, it was an active stance against fear and despair. In this moment, Habakkuk resolved to stand watch, waiting for God's response. He climbed up to his watchtower, a place of solitude and observation. He waited, ready to receive guidance. His heart was still heavy, but he understood that waiting in faith was a powerful act. The third lesson teaches us about waiting on God. Patience is not easy, but in our waiting, we practice faith. We learn to listen, to discern, and ultimately to grow. The watchtower symbolizes our quiet spaces of reflection where we can hear God's voice above the noise of the world. As Habakkuk stood watch, God revealed the nature of the judgment that would come upon the Chaldeans. They were proud and arrogant, believing their strength was their own. But God reminded Habakkuk that pride leads to destruction. The Babylonians would face their own reckoning. This revelation filled Habakkuk with both sorrow and hope. The same God who allowed the suffering would not let evil go unpunished. Habakkuk began to see a bigger picture, one that held a promise of restoration and divine justice. The prophet was reminded that God is sovereign over all nations. He is aware of every injustice, and his judgment is perfect. The fourth lesson emerges here: God's justice may not align with our timelines, but it is always faithful. When we see evil prosper, we must remember that God sees all. He will not forget the cries of the oppressed or the injustices that burden our hearts. As his dialogue with God deepened, Habakkuk began to reflect on God's past faithfulness. He remembered the stories of Israel, how God delivered them from Egypt, how he parted the Red Sea, and how he provided for them in the wilderness. These memories stirred his spirit and renewed his hope. In the midst of despair, Habakkuk found strength in remembrance. He sang a song of praise, recounting the mighty deeds of God. "Lord, I have heard of your fame, I stand in awe of your deeds, Lord. Renew them in our day." Habakkuk's heart was transformed from questioning to worship, from despair to hope. The fifth lesson speaks to the power of remembrance. When we look back at God's faithfulness, we ignite our faith for present challenges. Remembering his past provision gives us confidence for the future. In the final chapter, Habakkuk's song crescendos with a beautiful declaration of faith. Though the fig tree does not bud and there are no grapes on the vines, though the olive crop fails and the fields produce no food, though there are no sheep in the pen and no cattle in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. His trust was no longer dependent on his circumstances but solely on God. Habakkuk recognized that joy is not tied to material abundance or favorable conditions. Instead, it is rooted in a relationship with God. Even when everything seemed bleak, he chose to rejoice in the God of his salvation. The final lesson is a profound reminder that our joy can be found in God alone. Circumstances may change, but God's faithfulness remains. Our joy in him is a wellspring that sustains us through trials. As Habakkuk concluded his prayer, he expressed his confidence in God. "The sovereign Lord is my strength, he makes my feet like the feet of a deer, he enables me to tread on the heights." This was more than mere words, it was a declaration of trust and reliance on God's strength in the face of adversity. In the closing reflection, we are reminded that Habakkuk's story is not just about a prophet from long ago. It speaks to us today. Life is often filled with questions, doubts, and struggles. We may wrestle with God, seeking understanding and justice in a world that seems chaotic. Yet, through Habakkuk, we learn to bring our questions to God. We learn that waiting is a part of faith, and remembering his past faithfulness fuels our present hope. Our joy can be found not in our circumstances but in our relationship with the Almighty. God remains faithful to his promises. He hears our cries and walks with us through the valleys. Just as he assured Habakkuk of his sovereignty, he assures us today. Even when we do not understand, we can trust his plans. So let us be like Habakkuk, standing watch in our own lives, waiting on God with open hearts. Let us seek him in our questions and rejoice in his faithfulness. For in him, we find our strength and our joy.